Good afternoon to everyone here in the United States. Happy Friday, although it's probably not so happy in terms of weather for a lot of us. That's because we have an active pattern currently ongoing, winter storm and blizzard warnings stretching all the way from the west coast to the Great Lakes. So we have quite a lot to look at, quite a lot going on, and we have new winter storm watches and winter weather advisories going up across the nation here over the last little while as we start to see the next projections of the following system materialize. So our active system is currently moving through the Midwest, heading up to the Great Lakes in the Northeast. Our other system is currently moving into the West Coast, prompting those winter storm and blizzard warnings and prompting winter weather advisories as well as winter storm watches. So here's the active alerts map as of a little bit before what you just saw there. So some of those new winter storm watches in Arkansas and Oklahoma aren't quite there yet, but this gives you a general picture. So we just went through the winter weather alerts, but I want you to note all of those brown shaded regions. Those are either high wind warnings, high wind watches, or wind advisories, and they stretch all the way from Oklahoma, Missouri, and Texas all the way into the Northeast. Wind gusts exceeding 40, 50 miles per hour expected across the eastern half of the nation. So it's going to be very strong winds coming in with this new active system, and that's not even the worst of it. We have wind chill warnings going up across the nation as well, so we have a lot to talk about. So let's jump into the first official forecast here. This includes the West Coast system currently moving in. That proves to be rather impactful, especially in the Rockies, with numerous areas of major winter storm severity indices. Then we also see in the Midwest those moderate to major winter storm severity indices heading up into the Northeast, especially along the Great Lakes. So we have two systems that we're currently tracking, one in the Midwest, one on the West Coast, both of them expected to bring winter storm impacts to a major degree. The West Coast one for the Rockies and the Midwest one for the upper Midwest, Michigan in particular, getting the worst of that. So what about snow? Well, snowfall is looking to be pretty substantial, over 2 feet of snow forecast from the National Weather Service up in the Michigan Peninsula. So that's something that is really significant. You don't see that very often, especially in the Midwest. Well over a foot for much of Michigan is expected, and then we see over half a foot expected all the way from near the Twin Cities in Minnesota all the way up through Wisconsin as well. And then, of course, along the Great Lakes, we see substantiated lake effect snow of over a foot as well. We also see from our West Coast system that our mountainous regions are expecting over 2, maybe even 3 feet of snow. However, around that, we're expecting at least half a foot of snow on the northern periphery of this system, even in the less mountainous regions. Wind, I mentioned that. That's also a threat. That's also something to watch. We're going to be seeing wind gusts, especially in our more mountainous regions, with the West Coast system exceeding 60, 70, perhaps even 80 miles per hour over the next couple of days. Our less mountainous regions expecting wind gusts over 50 miles per hour. As we head to the eastern half of the country, in particular the northeastern half of the country, we're expecting that wind gusts are going to exceed 50 miles per hour across most of the northeastern United States. That includes Maine, especially Vermont. We're expecting New York, anywhere along the Great Lakes, to have strong winds. We are expecting that there will be strong winds in Michigan, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Delaware, New Jersey, Maryland, Missouri, Illinois, Iowa. I could go on, but very widespread. Strong winds are expected, hence those weather alerts. So keep an eye on your local National Weather Service to see the latest on how strong winds could impact you. We'll go over how you can prepare for those just a little bit in a later portion of this video. So that's all to do with this major winter storm. A lot of it is, especially the stuff on the eastern side. It's going to be out of here by the 14th. So conditions are deteriorating rapidly in the Midwest as we speak. Well over a foot of snow again, maybe even perhaps 2 feet of snow expected in the upper Michigan Peninsula. We're going to be seeing blizzard conditions likely with strong winds. We just went over that as well. Wind gusts over 40, 50 miles per hour expected on more of our flatlands, our plains, and then in the mountains we could see wind gusts well over 60 60 miles per hour. Lake effect snow will also persist over the weekend. We talked about that. It's going to be over a foot in some spots in New York in particular that are going to get the worst of the lake effect. And then we also have flooding and severe storm concerns. So let's jump into those. So severe storms first, we have a level 2 out of 5 slight risk for parts of Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. That includes the cities of Pensacola, Tallahassee, and Panama City in Florida, Dothan there in Alabama, and we're near Macon and Savannah, but not quite in the state of Georgia. And then we have a marginal risk stretching all the way from Tampa, Orlando, Cape Canaveral in Florida, all the way up north to around Kitty Hawk, Cape Hatteras up there in North Carolina. So widespread but not particularly potent severe risk. Isolated severe thunderstorms are expected, damaging winds and tornadoes being the primary threats. However, some large hail is also a possibility. We also have a level 2 out of 4 slight risk for flash flooding or rapid onset flooding, stretching all the way from around Washington, D.C., all the way up to Providence, Boston, Massachusetts. New York City is within that slight risk. So is Philadelphia and Pennsylvania. So lots of areas in that slight risk. The marginal risk extending way farther south, nearly including Atlanta, Georgia. And then we have another marginal risk stretching from Indianapolis all the way through down south to around the Missouri, Kentucky, Illinois border. So large, somewhat narrow, but large corridor for a flooding risk in the United States as well. However, it is not widespread compared to the risk for strong winds and especially that sub-zero Arctic air. We'll be talking about that momentarily. So just how much precipitation, if it were all rain, are we expecting? Well, of course, up in Michigan, we're expecting quite a bit. And again, that's going to be significantly more than what this shows because it's falling in the form of snow, which on average is about 10 inches of snow to 1 inch of rain. So just note that. And as we head into the Northeast where it is more rain, this is where we have some more useful information. Well over 2, perhaps even 3 inches in isolated spots of rain are expected all the way from New Hampshire all the way down through the Appalachians to around Atlanta, Georgia, hence the flooding risk that's in place from the Weather Prediction Center. So with that all being said, let's now move on to what I think is the highest impact thing here that we're going to be dealing with over the next few days, despite everything else, which is also impactful. That is this first Arctic blast moving into the United States. This is the chance of sub-zero temperatures, sub-zero wind chills, over the next 7 days. That's the first graphic you see there. And we have above 90% chances across more of the nation than not. It's actually easier to list the places that don't have above a 90% chance of sub-zero wind chills than the places that do. So some areas in California, some areas there in southern New Mexico and Arizona, southern Texas, southern Louisiana, southern Mississippi, southern Alabama, the entire state of Florida, southern Georgia, most of South Carolina, and then finally eastern North Carolina. Those are the places that are at a below 90% chance of getting sub-zero wind chills over the next 7 days. So this is looking like it's going to be pretty considerable when it comes to areal extent, but the bigger thing is who this is going to impact and just how cold it's going to get. This is going to be a life-threatening situation, folks. So while I know that cold, it's not that rapidly changing, severe weather, hurricane, winter storm, blizzard, it doesn't have the same ring to it. This is just as dangerous, if not more dangerous. This is deadly and it needs to be taken seriously. I cannot stress that enough. So this is the first significant Arctic outbreak of winter. This is going to be, again, overspreading most of the U.S., and we are expecting numerous daily cold records to be broken over the next few days. So be on the lookout for that. There's actually a really cool Twitter page, if I can go off on a little side note for just a second, called Weathergami you can follow. And that shows you when we've hit new temperature combinations that have never been hit before and when you hit records that happen. So that's a really cool page where you can track how temperatures are going when it comes to records in that regard. Record temperature combinations, record highs, record lows, all of it, you can track it using that page. We're expecting dangerously cold wind chills, so wind chills are going to be even colder than the temperatures themselves, hence why our sub-zero wind chills are overspreading most of the country. Our sub-zero temperatures won't be quite that widespread, but we're expecting some areas could get as cold to negative 50, maybe even 60 degrees in terms of wind chills by the time we get to Saturday morning in Montana and the western Dakotas. This is going to be extremely dangerous, especially when it comes to frostbite and hypothermia. So please make sure that you're taking your safety plans, and we'll go in more detail about what that looks like here soon. Again, we're going to have heavy snow in the west today and Saturday with additional wintry precipitation next week. We've already addressed this earlier in the video, so I'm not going to dive into any more detail here. I do want to go day by day as to just how cold the temperatures are going to be. This is not wind chills. This is actual temperatures. The overnight low tonight is -37 in portions of western Montana. It gets even cooler than that in some of our more mountainous regions. Shown on the map, we could be cracking -50 in some of our most mountainous regions. That's actual temperature. Not wind chill, actual temperature. Wind chills could be even colder. Sub-zero temperatures are expected to extend all the way into Missouri, Kansas, and perhaps even the Oklahoma Panhandle overnight tonight. But as we head into overnight tomorrow, heading into Sunday, these sub-zero temperatures stretch into Illinois, Indiana, well into the Oklahoma Panhandle, starting to creep into Texas, and we have below freezing temperatures overspreading a vast majority of the country. The only state in the whole country that almost gets out of it is Florida, but even Florida has a small portion of below freezing temperatures as we head into Sunday. But sub-zero temperatures stretching all the way from the northwestern coast all the way into the Midwest. So that is a very expansive cold air mass that's moving in there. That cold remains as we head into the third day of this. So this is heading into Monday morning, where our temperatures will be the lowest, heading into the third night of this, and we're going to be seeing sub-zero temperatures even more widespread, now well into Oklahoma, and then 4 days out, diving even farther south. So you'll notice that our very coldest temperatures, they're not those -50s and 60s anymore. They're in the -10s. However, it's far more widespread. So this is still something that's significant. This is still something that's extremely dangerous. Once you get below zero, once you get below 10 degrees even, that's when you start getting really dangerously cold. And we're seeing that overspreading everywhere from well into Texas all the way into Canada, stretching from nearly coast to coast here. So this is a very widespread event. And then as we head over the next few days, those temperatures do begin to get a bit warmer. However, by the end of the official forecast, we still have sub-zero temperatures in Iowa, South and North Dakota, Montana, the entirety of Minnesota, and much of Wisconsin. So those temperatures are not going to be completely out for everyone. However, there will be a lot of areas, especially in our southernmost states, that will be starting to return to some semblance of normal. So we talked about that. Let's now talk about wind chill. So the cold air mass, you can see visually, because this is hour by hour, and this is a weather model, not an official forecast, how that wind chill is going to come in tonight. And those wind chills, -57 is one of the numbers I just saw there in the Dakotas. That's just crazy. And those are going to get even cooler overnight tomorrow. And then as we head through the remainder of this event, we see still wind chills well below -10 across most of the country for a little while there before, again, our cold temperatures do begin to recede back up north, heading in the general direction of Canada. But in the meantime, the cold is going to be extremely widespread. It's going to be very, very dangerous, and it's something that we need to be taking seriously. I cannot write home enough that we need to be watching closely, especially, again, if you're in the U.S., you need to check your forecasts. You need to make sure that you have your frostbite and hypothermia safety plans in place. You need to make sure you're limiting your time outdoors if you're within these bitter cold temperatures. It is serious. It kills people. I don't say that to alarm anyone, because if you take safety measures, you will be okay. There is no risk if you take safety measures of this really catching you out or being a significant concern. But if you don't take this seriously, that's when things can start to get a bit more hazardous for you. So what's ushering this in? Well, the system that's currently moving out in the Midwest is doing it, but we have another low pressure system that's heading into the Pacific Northwest, and as that moves southward, that could bring some snow to the Midwest, the Rockies, and that's going to really usher in our cold air here before this potentially develops into something that could become more substantial for the Northeast. So we've talked about the cold. Let's now talk about some snow totals that could come out of this following system after the one moving out of the Midwest. And I'm not going to give you exact numbers because we just don't know yet, but I will give you some chances courtesy of an ensemble model. This is the global ensemble forecast system. And what we're noticing is This is the chances of over 3 inches of snow, stretching all the way from Tuesday, January 16th, back to Sunday, January 14th. So from January 14th to 16th, we see that we have our highest chances of over 3 inches or more of snow being in the Rockies and in the Great Lakes, but we see swiping through the plains heading into the Midwest that Arkansas has our best shot of 3 inches or so of snow, greater than that at over 80% in some northern portions of the state. And then as we move the next few days, so from Tuesday to Thursday, January 18th, we see that the Northeast could get in on some of this, but we really don't know yet. The highest chances there, again, along the Great Lakes for over 3 inches of snow. However, for those of you that are not along the Great Lakes, the highest chances these models can give is around a 50-50 shot. So we'll see what happens over the next few days, and we'll keep you up to date as we grow closer to that snow event. And we'll keep you up to date with what's going on with the cold, because this is not our only Arctic blast. This one is going to start to recede a bit, and then we're going to have another one that's going to move in, and that's going to bring another widespread Arctic air outbreak that's likely to affect areas east of the Rockies during late January. So we have a second Arctic blast. It's likely to move in. So from the 19th to the 22nd, that's kind of the time frame that they're looking at, the 19th and 20th specifically. That's when we're seeing our biggest hazardous cold temperatures. So January 19th to 22nd, that's round number two of this. So round number 1 is going to move out 16th, 17th, maybe 18th even for some of you, especially in the northernmost parts of the country. And then on the 19th, this next wave of cold air is going to come in and bring, again, near record, extremely dangerous, perhaps sub-zero temperatures yet again. Enhanced wind speeds will also be there, so high winds, especially in the Northeast, those are going to be a possibility. And then, of course, we also have the possibility of a coastal snowstorm moving in and causing some problems as well. So we'll keep you up to date with the second Arctic blast, the first Arctic blast that's about to move in, and we'll also keep you up to date with that West Coast system that's currently starting to emerge as a threat for the country winter weather-wise. Well, what can you do here? How can you prepare? Well, when it comes to travel, ice and snow, take it slow. That's the slogan. You accelerate slower than usual. You brake earlier than usual. Clean off your vehicle before driving. That's always important. Take your time with that. Make sure that that's happening. You want to clean off the top of your vehicle. That makes sure that people behind you don't get hit with snow. That can be distracting. That can cause problems as well. You want to make sure that you're keeping it slow and don't use cruise control, because a lot of people, by habit, to deactivate cruise control, they just tap their brakes. That's enough to lose traction on icy roads, so that's not what you want to do. And you want to leave extra distance between vehicles, so that way if someone loses control, whether that's you or someone else, you're risking the lowest amount of people possible. So frostbite and hypothermia, that's another major concern. I've brought it up multiple times throughout the video. You want to seek medical attention immediately if you think someone might have frostbite or hypothermia. The things to do in either scenario, you want to get to a warm area. This is going to make sure that you stop losing heat. Removing wet clothing is also important. Wet clothing, evaporation is a process that will cool you down. That's why you sweat. So remove wet clothing. That'll keep you warmed up. You want to warm up with dry layers of blankets or clothing, and you want to make sure that your skin affected by frostbite is in lukewarm water. And especially for those of you who may experience frostbite or someone else does throughout the winter, do not use fireplaces or artificial heat sources for warming. You don't want to warm up your hands too rapidly. That could cause real problems. Rubbing or putting pressure on areas with frostbite could also cause problems. That blood's frozen. There's no circulation there. It's dying. It's not going to be capable of handling stress as it usually does. So just make sure that you're being extremely careful there. I also want to note what happens when winds get strong, because so many areas are going to have strong winds. You want to make sure that you know an interior room in your home or at work that you can take shelter in if you're in a high wind warning. If you're driving and aren't near a sturdy building, you want to hold the steering wheel with both hands and slow down. That way, if your car does get jerked around, and this also applies in wind advisories, you can correct for steering, not lose control of the vehicle. You want to stay clear of hazards from above, so that's going to be branches from trees, that could be street poles, anything like that. And then you also want to bring in loose or outdoor items, and if you can't bring those in, you want to stay away from them, as those could blow away. Those could be a real hazard. Those could cause injury as well. Finally, if you're in the severe weather or flooding threats from today, you can check out our severe weather preparation video. It's a comprehensive guide, link in the description below, that goes over what you can do for severe weather and flooding threats. Well, with that being said, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and it was informative to you. If you liked it, you can hit the like button down below. You can also join our Discord server in order to have some time with our community, chat with us, ask questions, and even get to know each other. We're going to have some community events coming up soon where we'll be playing some games with each other. Mostly weather nerdy games, but you know, it's always fun. And some of them not so weather nerdy, just more general games. So the Discord server is a great place to be. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss a single other video. Be sure to leave a comment if you have questions and don't want to join the Discord server. And with all that being said, again, thank you so much for watching. We hope to see you in the next video.